unbearable weight of being honest. There is a kind of silence that wraps around the soul of every honest person. Not the silence of peace or calm, but a deep, almost sacred silence born from the weight of carrying truths the world doesn't want to hear. If you have ever found yourself hesitating to speak because you knew your words might shake someone's illusion, then you already know this burden. If you've ever chosen to say what was real instead of what was expected, and then watched the room grow cold, you understand this weight. It's not easy to live truthfully in a world that runs on performance. Every day, people wear masks. They smile when they are in pain. They agree to things that go against their values. They remain silent not because they have nothing to say, but because they know that honesty is often punished, not praised. The truth may set you free, but freedom often comes at the price of isolation. Alan Watts once said that we seldom realize our thoughts are shaped by a world we didn't create. From birth we are taught what to believe, how to behave, what is acceptable, and what is not. But within the soul of every honest person, there's a quiet rebellion. There's a refusal to keep pretending. And once you begin to live from that place, everything changes. You lose the comfort of ignorance, but you gain the clarity of consciousness. You begin to see, feel, and understand in ways most people avoid. But this clarity doesn't always come with applause. In fact, more often than not, it is met with resistance. The honest person becomes a mirror, and people don't always like what they see in the mirror. That's why many who speak truth, especially emotional and spiritual truths, are often misunderstood, labeled as difficult, called too intense, seen as distant. Not because they don't care, but because they care too deeply. They care enough to live without pretense. Being truthful is not simply about facts. It's about alignment. It's about living in a way where your inner world and your outer expression are in sync. It's about refusing to compromise your soul just to make others comfortable. And that is no small feat. It demands strength, self-awareness, and an unshakable relationship with solitude. Solitude becomes the companion of the honest soul. Because when you choose truth over convenience, you often walk alone. Not because you want to be alone, but because few are willing to walk beside someone who doesn't bend to the norms. Yet in that solitude, something beautiful happens. You begin to trust your inner voice more than the crowd. You begin to feel peace in your own skin. You no longer need validation to feel worthy. But even with that inner strength, there's still pain. The pain of being misunderstood, the pain of being labeled as too serious or too much, the pain of watching others succeed by being what they are not, while you quietly hold on to who you truly are. This pain is not loud. It doesn't scream. It doesn't demand attention. It just sits there in the corners of your heart, reminding you that honesty often walks hand in hand with loneliness. Still, there is a quiet dignity in carrying that pain. It means you've chosen the path of integrity. It means you are awake in a world that prefers sleep. It means you are not here to conform, but to live with depth. You may not fit in everywhere, but you are at home within yourself. And that is the most powerful kind of freedom. So if you are someone who has always felt the weight of being honest, if you've carried truths that others couldn't handle, know this. You are not weak. You are not wrong. You are rare. And in a world filled with noise, your silence is sacred. You are not alone, even if it sometimes feels that way. Others like you exist. Others who have chosen truth, not because it is easy, but because it is real. Let this space be a place where we honor that journey together. Now, I invite you to leave a comment below to let others know they are not alone in this silent path. Please write this. I carry my truth with silent strength. Your words might give someone else the courage to keep going. Why society fears the truthful? Have you ever noticed how uncomfortable people become when faced with someone who speaks the truth with calm clarity? Not the kind of truth that inflates egos or confirms biases, but the kind that cuts through illusions. That kind of truth doesn't bring applause. It brings silence, denial, and sometimes rejection. And there is a reason for that. Society is not built to honor truth. It is built to maintain order, and order often depends on agreement, on shared stories, even if those stories are illusions. When someone walks into a room and speaks a truth no one else is willing to voice, they don't just say something different, they become something different. They disturb the equilibrium. They wake people up from a comfortable sleep. Alan Watts observed that human beings live in a world largely shaped by symbols, roles, and expectations. He explained that what we call reality is often a projection of social agreements and internal narratives. In other words, we live in shared dreams. To maintain these dreams, we learn to suppress what is real. We laugh when we want to cry. We agree when we feel resistance. We stay silent when our souls are begging to speak. The truthful person disrupts this, and disruption is rarely welcomed. It forces people to confront what they've spent years avoiding. It brings emotions to the surface. It shatters illusions of security, and most people, even if they say they value truth, are terrified of it. Because truth demands transformation, and transformation demands the death of the familiar. Think about the figures in history who dared to speak truthfully. Socrates questioned the very fabric of Athenian values. He was condemned. Jesus challenged religious hypocrisy and was crucified. Galileo spoke of a universe that didn't revolve around Earth and was silenced. These individuals were not only thinkers, they were mirrors. They showed people a version of life that didn't fit the accepted narrative, and the world punished them for it. That's still happening today. In schools, workplaces, families, even friendships, people learn quickly that honesty has limits. Be too honest and you'll be called difficult. Speak too much truth and you'll be labeled dramatic or negative. Be too real and you'll be pushed to the margins. The world doesn't just reject the truth. It resents the person who dares to speak it. It's not personal, it's psychological. Human beings build mental frameworks to feel safe. When a truthful person challenges that framework, it's seen as a threat. So the instinct is to dismiss them, isolate them, or shame them into silence. This is how truth becomes a burden, not because it lacks value, but because it lacks welcome. Yet, the truth is essential, not just for growth, but for healing. Every lie we accept chips away at our soul. Every time we say yes when we mean no, a part of us withers. And every time we silence our truth to keep others comfortable, we build a cage around our authenticity. The tragedy is that most people are not malicious. They're just afraid. Afraid of what the truth might change. Afraid of who they might become if they stop pretending. Afraid that everything they've built might fall apart if they acknowledge what's really there. So when a truthful soul enters their space, they don't see a friend. They see a threat, and they react accordingly. Alan Watts once said that to be truly human is to be vulnerable. And vulnerability requires truth. But truth cannot survive in an environment that rejects discomfort. That's why the truthful are often lonely. Not because they are flawed, but because they are ahead of their time. They live in the future of awareness, while most are still caught in the past of denial. If you are someone who has felt this rejection, know that it is not a reflection of your worth. It is proof of your clarity. It is a sign that you see deeper, feel deeper, and live from a place others have not yet reached. And while that path may be lonely, it is also sacred. Being truthful in a world that fears honesty is not easy, but it is necessary. Your presence is a reminder that reality still exists beneath all the noise, that someone still values alignment over approval, that not everyone is asleep. Keep walking in that truth, even if the world resists you. The inner conflict of the truthful soul. There is a quiet war that takes place inside every truthful soul. It is not a war fought with others, but within oneself. On one side is the deep need to live with integrity, to honor what is real, to stay aligned with one's inner voice. On the other side is the aching desire to be accepted, to belong, to avoid being cast out. These two forces often exist in tension, pulling the honest person in opposite directions. The conflict begins early. Children are born with an innate sense of truth. They ask difficult questions. They speak with unfiltered honesty. But over time, they are taught to edit themselves. Not always through cruelty, but through the subtle pressure to be liked, to be polite, to be normal. Slowly, a gap forms between what they feel and what they say. That gap, left unchecked, becomes a wound. Alan Watts believed that much of human suffering stems from pretending to be what we are not. We perform roles because we believe those roles will keep us safe. But every performance, no matter how convincing, creates a kind of soul erosion. The truthful soul feels this erosion more deeply than most, because for them, pretending is not just uncomfortable, it is unbearable. Still, the conflict remains. There are moments when the truthful soul wants to speak but stays silent. Not because they lack courage, but because they know the consequences. Speaking up can cost relationships. It can end careers. It can lead to judgment, mockery, or worse, complete isolation. So they hesitate. They question themselves. They wonder if being honest is worth the loneliness it sometimes brings. That hesitation is not weakness. It is evidence of their depth. The truth teller is not reckless. They are thoughtful. They understand the weight of words. They know that once something real is spoken, it cannot be unsaid. That kind of awareness is both a gift and a burden. It forces the truthful person to live in a constant state of self-reflection. There is also guilt. The guilt of not saying enough. The guilt of saying too much. The guilt of being too sensitive, too aware, too awake. In a world that rewards numbness, the truth teller often feels like a foreigner in their own culture. They try to soften their edges. They try to tone it down. But inside, something breaks each time they betray their truth. And yet, there are moments of clarity. Moments when they speak from their soul, and something shifts in the air. Someone hears them. Someone feels seen. In those rare moments, the truth teller remembers why they chose this path. They remember that truth, even when it hurts, can also heal. It can illuminate. It can liberate. It can reconnect us to something bigger than approval. Authenticity. Still, the inner conflict continues. Some days, the truthful soul feels strong. Other days, they feel exhausted. Carrying truth is heavy. It weighs on the heart, especially when the world around you seems so content with lies. The lies of perfection, the lies of certainty, the lies of control, the lies people tell themselves just to survive. Alan Watts once described life as a dance between form and chaos, between what is and what is becoming. The truthful soul lives at the edge of that dance. They feel things before others do. They see patterns unraveling. They hear what is not being said. This sensitivity, though often painful, is also their superpower. But every superpower comes with a cost. And for the honest person, that cost is often internal. It's the ache of wanting to connect, but refusing to compromise. It's the longing to be understood, while knowing most will never truly understand. It's the battle between self-expression and self-protection. If you felt this conflict, know that you are not broken. You are not weak. You are simply awake. You are navigating a world that often punishes what it most needs. Your struggle is a sign of your strength. Your pain is evidence of your depth. And your conflict is the mark of a soul that refuses to live on the surface. There is no perfect resolution to this inner battle. But there is honor in continuing to show up. To keep speaking. To keep choosing truth, even when it hurts. Because in the end, the truthful soul may walk alone, but they walk free. Turning silent pain into spiritual power. Every truth teller reaches a moment when silence no longer feels like a burden, but a form of power. Not the kind of power that controls or dominates, but a spiritual power. A quiet, grounded presence that comes from knowing who you are, even when the world refuses to see you. The pain is still there, yes, but it begins to take a different shape. It no longer controls you. It transforms you. At first, the silence that follows truth feels like rejection. When you speak from the heart and people pull away, it's easy to think something is wrong with you. But as time passes, and as you grow into your own depth, you begin to see that their reaction was not about your truth. It was about their fear. People don't reject you because you are too much. They reject you because they are not ready. And that's not your failure. That's part of their journey. Alan Watts taught that spiritual growth often begins with discomfort. Pain has a way of waking us up. It strips away our illusions. It shows us what is real. But only if we let it. Many run from pain. They numb it, deny it, distract themselves with noise. But the truthful soul, when they stop resisting the pain and begin to observe it, finds something profound. Beneath the ache is clarity. Beneath the rejection is strength. Beneath the isolation is presence. You start to see that the silence around you is not empty. It is full of awareness. You no longer crave constant conversation or shallow validation. Instead, you learn to listen to yourself, to trust your intuition, to find companionship in your own stillness. That shift, subtle and powerful, is the beginning of your spiritual power. And here's the irony. What once felt like loneliness begins to feel like liberation. You realize you don't have to please everyone. You don't have to twist yourself into a shape that makes others comfortable. You can just be, and that kind of being carries a frequency that cannot be faked. It is calm, grounded, magnetic. People may not understand it, but they feel it. Some are drawn to it. Others are intimidated by it. But either way, you are no longer performing. You are simply living. Watts often reminded us that life is not a problem to be solved, but an experience to be lived. The pain of being truthful is not something to escape, but something to learn from. It teaches you resilience. It teaches you discernment. It teaches you how to honor your own rhythm in a world that's always trying to rush you. You begin to choose peace over drama, depth over distraction, real over easy. And slowly, you reclaim the parts of yourself you once silenced to fit in. You remember the child you used to be before the world told you to hide. And in doing so, you don't just heal, you evolve. This evolution doesn't look like fireworks. It's not loud or dramatic. It's subtle. You become more grounded, more intuitive, more compassionate. Not just with others, but with yourself. You stop blaming yourself for other people's discomfort. You stop apologizing for your sensitivity. You stop questioning your worth. And here is the most beautiful part. You become a light for others. Just by being honest, you give silent permission for others to do the same. You show them that truth doesn't have to be cruel, that silence doesn't have to be lonely, that pain doesn't have to be hidden. Your life becomes a quiet testimony of what it means to live with integrity. This is what spiritual power looks like. It is not about having all the answers. It is about holding space for what is real. It is about standing firm in your truth without needing to defend it. It is about walking with a kind of softness that comes from deep strength. So if your truth has cost you people, opportunities, or belonging, let it be. What you've gained in return is priceless. You've gained yourself. You've gained your alignment. You've gained a kind of inner peace that cannot be shaken by outside noise. You no longer carry the pain of truth as a wound. You carry it as a badge, a quiet symbol of courage, transformation, and awakening. After all the solitude, after all the inner storms and silent nights, comes a moment of understanding, a realization that you were never truly alone. You were simply walking a different path, a quieter one, a path not paved with approval or applause, but with clarity, courage, and a longing for something real. The kind of path only the truthful dare to walk. Maybe you've spent years wondering if something was wrong with you. Maybe you thought you felt too much, said too much, or questioned too much, but none of those things make you broken. In fact, they are signs of awakening, signs that your soul refused to go numb, signs that your spirit chose truth over comfort. Alan Watts once said that the only way to make sense of change is to plunge into it, move with it, and join the dance. That is what the truthful soul does. You don't resist the truth, even when it hurts. You don't run from the pain, even when it isolates you. You feel it, you hold it, you let it shape you. That's what makes you rare. And because you are rare, the world may not always understand you. But that does not make you less valuable. It makes you essential. You are living proof that it's possible to exist without pretending. You are living proof that it's possible to feel deeply and still carry on. You are living proof that silence does not always mean emptiness. Sometimes it means strength. The silent pain you carry is not meaningless. It has shaped your empathy. It has sharpened your perception. It has built a kind of wisdom that no textbook can teach. You've learned how to listen without judgment, how to sit with discomfort, how to hold space for others without losing yourself. That is not weakness. That is sacred power. But even the strongest souls need reminders that they are not alone, that others too have walked this path, that behind the calm eyes of another stranger may lie the same battles you fought in silence. We are all connected by threads we cannot see, and those of us who speak truth carry the responsibility of keeping those threads alive. So now, let this message be your reminder. You are not the only one who feels this deeply. You are not the only one who struggles to fit into a world built on surface-level smiles. You are not the only one who sometimes wonders if it's worth it. It is. It always is. Because every time you speak from your heart, someone else hears their own truth reflected back. Every time you choose honesty over approval, someone else gathers the courage to do the same. Every time you show up fully as yourself, you give others silent permission to drop the mask. That is how you lead. Not with force, but with authenticity. You were not meant to be hidden. You were not meant to be silent forever. Yes, your truth may scare some. It may make others uncomfortable. But it will also light a path for those lost in darkness. You don't need to change who you are to belong. You simply need to remember who you've always been. And if this message has stirred something in you, if it has brought a sense of comfort, of recognition, or even tears, then it means you were ready to hear it. Let it be your confirmation that you are on the right path. Let it be your sign that your truth matters. Before you go, I invite you to do something simple, but powerful. Leave a comment below, not just for yourself, but for everyone else who walks this same road in silence. Write this: I may walk alone, but I walk in truth. Your words may be the exact message someone else needs to read today. Your courage could be the spark that helps them feel seen, maybe for the first time. Thank you for staying with me through this journey. Thank you for honoring your soul enough to listen. You are not alone, and you never were. Now go live your truth, quietly, boldly, completely.